Alright, so I think I've got a pretty good system worked out for making glass circles reliably. I pinched it off a guy on YouTube. Uh, I'll link it in the description. But take a piece of this float glass that I bought from Reverse Garbage today. I'm going to section off 100mm square. Get my straight cutter. Cut straight. Straightish. I really need to build a jig to make it easier. And break that off. Put myself a square. Put my finger oil all over everything. Nice. I thoroughly cleaned all of this before I cut it up, for what it's worth. Now I get my circle cutter. Check that the little cutty disc is indexed properly. Bung it approximately in the center. Lock it down and then give it a spin. So I'll try to, if I do it this way, does that make any good for the camera? Important to make sure everything's locked down, because nothing's worse than, well, plenty of things are worse, but it's a bit annoying when you get to the end of the circle and your lines don't meet up. It's a bit frustrating. Then you grab a tea towel. I've doubled, it has to be played. It's doubled over 4 times, or quadrupled over once. And then grab some gloves. And then you want to push gently to start a crack going around the circle. So I've put the scratched side down, so when I push it's trying to flex the glass open on the side that's cracked. So now gently push until I can see or feel or hear a crack starting. And then you want to sort of chase that around the circle. This is the danger zone. This is where you get a rogue split that goes to the edge across your circle, and then you go and cry for a bit. Oh, there we go. I don't know if that's showing up on the camera. Kind of, you can sort of see the little bit of extra reflectance in this where my thumb is here. So that there's a crack that started straight through the glass at that point. So now we want to chase that around such that that crack propagates all the way around. See, I'm pushing, oops, well, it split off to the side there. So that's fortunately outside the circle. It's gone off that way. So I'll chase the crack around this way and just gently sort of encouraging the crack to sort of flee ahead of my finger. All the way around. You don't need to push very hard. And if you've done your scoring right, then the crack will propagate around the circle. It's very hard to see for my eyeballs in real life, so don't expect to see it on the camera. Okay, so now we've cracked all the way around and also out a little bit there. So now we've got to free it, because this isn't just like a straight perfect cut like you get with a laser or a water jet cutter. It's sort of all messy, intermingled, meshing cuts. So it's not going to like let you slide the circle out of the ring. We need to make some more cuts to free it. So pop it there, get my straight cutter again, and then give it 4 little nicks, starting about 1 millimeter from the edge of the circle. 1, 2, actually make it go all the way to the edge. Do this one again, that wasn't very deep. Okay, so now we've sectioned off these pieces. So the bloke on the video had a really neat little tool that seemed to sort of put the joint into shear, so it would snap predictably, but I don't have that, so I just do it with my fingies, and that seems to work pretty well. So I'm sort of pulling it out and away, and Bob's your uncle. Pretty good circle. Got a little dag at the top there. That's not the end of the world, but that appears to be a pretty repeatable system. Now I need to go and do that another 20 or 30 times. Oh, not that long. Now, it's not that hard, not that mentally taxing. I just put a podcast on. Okay, bye bye. And here we are. There's a bunch of the circles all cut up and given a rinse to get the little bits of glass off, but I'm still pretty nervous about slitting my fingers open on the edges because it's not very human friendly. But I think that looks pretty cool. And they're all stacked up and you can see all the different sort of wobbly light refracting through it. Sort of acts like a lens. It's pretty neat. So that, I don't know, what's this, about 10 discs stacked up there. So 82 millimeters outside diameter nominally. I think I'm going to make the window like 20 mil thick. So I've made slightly too many, but that's okay. I'm gonna make mistakes later on, so I need more circles. And I've got a lot more glass over there to cut up. But so the next step is to go through and clean all these again with some metho, and then to get the finger oil off, and then give them a soak in the hydrochloric, and then slump them in the furnace. And then hopefully I'll end up with a window with a much more regular edge, which will make it easier to fit in with the machined parts. But yeah, that new circle cutting technique works really well. You can batch it out, put a podcast on, and make a heap of them. I think this probably took me about an hour all up. And yeah, it's a perfectly reasonable period of time to make something that just feels nice. It's nice to make a thing. So yeah, the method is to get the finger oil off, and then from that point on it's gloves, gloves only, and then yeah, the acid wash, and then in the furnace, and then make a cool window. Okay, bye bye. So I've gone through quite a few lens cleaning wipes to clean the glass. It was supposed to be pretty clean though, because I soaked it overnight in hydrochloric, and then I rinsed it in tap water, and then I rinsed it with deionized water, and then left it to dry in the kiln at 70 degrees. But there was a bunch of mineral residue and other grit and filth and stuff on the glass, which is disappointing. Like, I suspect that the cheap Bunnings grade deionized water I have was deionized, but not necessarily filtered, so it won't clog up your clothes iron, but yeah, it will leave gunk on your glass if you're going for a very clean finish. So first I tried cleaning it with paper towel and metho. That left more residue, lots of little fibers from the paper towel. Then I moved on chucks, same problem. Part of the problem, I think, is that the rough edge on the glass tears up the edges of stuff. But eventually I settled on these that I bought for cleaning my VR headset lenses. They've just got some isopropyl alcohol and nominally lint-free cloth, but nevertheless, I was very carefully sort of wiping radially from the inside out. But even then, after a while, these would sort of start to get a bit ragged and start to leave little fibers everywhere. So I've got a lot in the bin there, and I'm reasonably happy with these. I don't know if it's coming across in the camera, but you can sort of see sort of a refraction or diffraction effect in the glass, because they're very clean and very close together, so light gets trapped in between them and bounces around. So you can get an optical flat and put a clear piece of glass on it and measure how flat it is based on the distance between the interference lines. So you know, I can look at this and see, yeah, that looks pretty, but I can't really take any measurements out of it. But the fact that they're there means that the glass is within a couple of wavelengths of light flat. A couple, I say, like 20, 50, 100, in that sort of range. But, you know, I'm going to fire this now and this again. So this is like 17.5 mil stack. If I take one off, then it's like 15.5 or something. So it's slightly thicker than this, and I'm refiring this one to fix the damage from the hammer donk. So I've coated my platen, my bat here, in this bat wash powder, which is like a release agent. Oh, it's gone. Where's it gone? I had it around here. Anyway, so I mixed up this mix in a bottle and then put the bat on my pottery wheel, spun it up and then dribbled it in the middle and it spread out. That worked pretty well, got a relatively even coating, but nevertheless I still had to go and flatten it out. So you can see these circumferential lines in there from flattening it as it was spinning, and then I dried it in the furnace. I've got a fair bit of pitting here, but there's some patches without so much pitting that I've put the gloss on. Not ideal, but you know, it's one of those things you could chase perfection for ages and never quite hit it. I might actually give it a quick sand though to smooth the surface out a little bit. But yeah, so I need to get a better way of cleaning the glass meticulously to avoid getting little fibers trapped inside. But I might buy some Kim wipes and see how they go. I was really hoping the deionized water would do the trick, but apparently not. Okay, bye-bye. Alrighty. There they are. Here goes another. I'm going to heat it up a lot more slowly this time. So I'm going to set a manual set point of, yeah, let's go 70, and I'll step that up to 100. And then I'll start the actual firing sequence. Okay. I'll leave the bungs out too so it heats up even more slowly. So here's window 2 out of the furnace when I fired this one alongside window 1 when I was firing window 1 for the third time and this one for the second time, the first time. You may notice that there's a big crack through it. Disregard that entirely and disregard all these divots in the top. That'll come up shortly. I just realized I didn't do a quality video of window 2 between making it and the destructive testing. So overall, it's a lot more regular geometrically. You'll see that the stack of glass shifted in the kiln. So the top stacks shifted this way, the top sheets shifted this way, which means that you need a bigger overall hole to fit around the whole thing. So that's not great. You'll also notice that there's these bubbles down inside there, so there's air trapped in between the layers of the glass. It's a bit hard to tell what I'm talking about. So all these little divots you see on the top there, they're not what I'm referring to, but if I sweep the light back and forth over it, you can see that there's these bubbles here, and you can see them also, probably see them both at the same time thanks to the magic of refraction. So if I compare that to window 1, it doesn't have the same thing. It's got sort of like a fizz, more of a fizz, you'd say, of trapped air in there. Now bear in mind this has been fired 3 times and this has been fired once, so maybe there's some sort of infizzification process that happens as you fire it again and again. The bubbles get smaller. And in terms of clarity, they're more or less the same. There's a different source of glass between these two, maybe, question mark. I should look at that. But they were both float glass from Windows, so I wouldn't expect a massive difference between them. But it would seem that this one is a little bit clearer. And this one might have got darker as a result of the potassium nitrate treatment. But anyway, so overall, I'd say the surface texture from the lightly sanded bat wash approach is worse than this one. So I can't use that shortcut. So I'm going to have to spend a bit more time getting the platen in the furnace flat and nice. But you know, the neater glass circles definitely help keep the edge smooth, because this is as smooth on the edge on the first firing as window 1 was on the second firing. So my new circle cutting technique works great. I just need a way of making sure that they don't shift as the furnace is heating up and give me this sort of racking profile, because I really do need flat sides. I could look into some jig or something to grind the edges vertical, but then I'd have to fire it again to relieve all the surface stresses that build up during the firing. So there is also a difference between these two, window 1 and window 2, in that there's more visible grit, more visible interlayer grit on this one. It's really hard to see, but yeah, just take my word for it. These ones are a bit cleaner, and that's probably due to the more thorough manual scrubbing process I went through to get this one clean. But those bubbles in there are a little bit annoying. Less so for the aesthetics and more so for the mechanics, because if the top layer of glass has a bubble directly underneath it, then I'd be worried about an impact at that point being a weak spot. The bubble causing a weak spot on the surface if it's one layer down. When it's right down, buried in the bottom, it's not so big a deal. But yeah, after this video I'm going to do one on the destructive testing stuff we did. Okay, bye bye.